Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. We have a Tether USD video for you guys today. One that I've been quite interested to do for some time, but coincidentally today, after some articles being produced across media, stating that Tether has reported over $10 billion of year-to-date profit, which is quite a bit, to be fair. I guess the main aspect of this video will be, how a $1 coin makes 10 billion. Before we do that, don't forget to smash the like button and of course the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. If you're enjoying the content, we always welcome you aboard the ship. So, a company whose product is always worth exactly $1 has just made over $10 billion in profit this year. So how on earth does that make sense? Well, for those that don't know about Tether, we'll do a bit of a breakdown in regards to, is it the largest, maybe the biggest stablecoin in the world at this moment in time? How it managed to become one of the most profitable companies in all of crypto over the many years. Now, there's always been some FUD out there, some pros and cons of Tether, like there is with anything in crypto, right? I do always believe that most of that is always down to some form of market manipulation, things like that. But we'll have a look at how it actually makes the money. So this report essentially meaning why it's such a big deal for the entire digital asset world and moving forward, of course. So we'll just start really quickly with the basics and then we can go on to the actual topic. So Tether, or most will know it as USDT. So if you're familiar with exchanges or haven't used them before and you're looking around for stablecoins to buy on the market, buy assets on the market utilizing Tether, you will see this as a USDT mark. So it's not what's known as essentially the stablecoin. In layman's terms, it's a digital token essentially that designs itself to stay pegged one-to-one with the US dollar. So the US aspect comes into the part of the abbreviations. So that means one USDT should always be worth essentially $1, the one-to-one ratio. So people use it as kind of like a safe zone, for like better wording, and traders move into Tether when the market gets volatile. What we mean by that is many will maybe sell their profits or safeguard themselves even in losses to put themselves into a stablecoin situation until the market perhaps relaxes itself a bit more and better, less emotional decisions can be made. So in many parts of the world, it's used definitely for remittances and payments because it's also a faster and cheaper way of doing finance than the existing banking systems. So you can imagine, this is a topic perhaps we covered in the video from yesterday about how the banking system is trying to retaliate, either with its own stablecoins or utilizing new infrastructures as soon as possible, just from these kind of aspects. So it's really interesting that we can see right now there are more than 174 billion USDT in circulation. I'm pretty sure that's right. Someone can correct me in the comments below. I didn't follow up on that info, but I'm pretty sure it's around that number when I last checked a couple of weeks ago. So the digital dollars all moving around the crypto ecosystem every single day. So the article in particular is basically mentioning the report from the Q3 2025 attestation report, I think it's called. Tether announced that $10 billion in profit so far this year and $6.8 billion in excess reserves. So their total assets, I believe, are about 181 billion, while liabilities, i.e. the value of all USDT issued, are around 174 billion. So that really does leave a healthy buffer of around about $6.8 billion, which is where that number kind of comes from that we mentioned just a minute ago. So most of these reserves are held in the US Treasury bills, roughly $135 billion worth, I think, when I was doing my research earlier today. So they also hold around about 13 billion in gold and nearly 10 billion in Bitcoin. So it's not even just about the US dollars, guys. You can imagine the market fluctuations in other assets outside of crypto, in and out of crypto, being utilized to peg this Tether. So Tether even starts recently, I think, a share buyback program as applying for an investment fund license as well in the likes of El Salvador. Not particularly interesting too much for us here in the UK or maybe even the United States, but it just shows you that governments and countries are looking into this, because at the end of the day, I think they actually hold a lot more money even than some countries, maybe multiple countries put together. So it's pretty wild really for a company built around a token that it never changes in price, that all of this can go on. So how can a stablecoin company make those billions in profit? Well, here's the secret. So it's all about the float. So when someone buys USDT, they send Tether, i.e. their dollars, and then Tether mints those into new tokens and gives them out 1-for-1. So back to the 1-to-1 ratio aspect. So both those dollars don't just sit in a bank account doing nothing. Tether invests most of those mainly in short-term US government bonds that pay around 4 to 5% interest. You start to realize how this money starts escalating. So on a reserve pool of roughly around $180 billion, even a small yield like what we just mentioned, over say 4%, equals around about $7 billion a year just in interest alone. Interest income, crazy. So add on redemption fees on top of that, service fees, and the gains from gold and Bitcoin, and you can see how they may have reached this around about $10 billion profit figure. So here's the key point: the users holding the USDT don't get that yield. I mean, some people may stake them for yields in that sense, but that's kind of operated in a different way, and I can do a staking video if anyone wants it, just let me know. But essentially they just hold a token worth of $1, right? So the issuer, Tether, keeps the yield. So in other words, Tether is running almost like a digital bank. Again, back to my point earlier and the video yesterday, that banks are being frustrated about this kind of thing, which is why they're reacting, why the financial world system is reacting. So they're earning interest on everyone's parked dollars basically, but without being a traditional bank. So some analysts have even called it one of the most profitable business models ever created per employee. So that's quite a substantial statement really. Now, why does this matter? Well, because Tether isn't just another crypto company, it's the backbone of crypto liquidity. So USDT, always get those muddled up sometimes, is the most traded asset pair on virtually every exchange, you name it, across the board around the world. So it fuels decentralized finance protocols. In some countries, it's used daily as a substitute for local currency. That's mad. And I do think that we'll see more and more of those kind of trends worldwide as well. And certainly when Tether grows, I would anticipate liquidity across the entire crypto market will expand with it, which we kind of see already anyway. But just to reiterate, that growth pattern tends to go in the trend mode for the rest of the crypto market as well. But that size also means a potential risk. So if Tether ever faced massive redemptions, or if questions about its reserves became serious, the shockwaves would hit every corner of crypto, including us of course, but also from the exchanges to the DeFi and the stablecoin trust itself. So the good news in that sense is that this report shows that Tether is sitting on a large surplus of healthy profits. So this suggests that it has strength to absorb short-term shocks. So remember I mentioned earlier in some other videos about the FUD that sometimes goes out there. Tether is this, Tether is that, and same with USDC and some other ones as well. Of course, some of that is market manipulation, absolutely. But the reality is, the facts essentially here in front of us today would suggest that it has enough surplus for those healthy profits to ensure that any kind of threat from manipulation, market damage, narratives, whatever it might be, they can withstand that. So still, there is a lack of full independent audits, which I guess where a lot of the critique comes from general users, end users, and of course the markets in general. So if we zoom out a bit, I think it started, 2014? I think it was actually called Realcoin back in the day, if I remember correctly. But it survived pretty much every crypto crash, right? Every wave of skepticism, which we just mentioned, and even major exchange collapses as well. I would name a few over the years, can't we? So it's competitors like USDC, DAI. I think you've now got obviously Ripple's RL, USD. I can never remember. I even did that in the video yesterday. PayPal, of course, I got one as well. So they could potentially offer greater transparency to that extent, but none of them come close to Tether's scale or global use at this moment in time. Okay, so the USDC, in my opinion, is probably the next biggest one. It's not used too much. I think a lot of people get put off because of the Ethereum costs and things like that, but it just depends on your pairing. I use Polygon's POS system in Ledger, for example, USDC. We can talk about that another day. But at this point, Tether has evolved from just being that crypto utility into something resembling a financial institution. So this is important, with the profits and reserves on par with, I would say, mid-sized banks. I wouldn't say like maybe the likes of HSBC or Barclays or something, but I don't know, maybe on par with like Metro, some of those other like medium-rated sized banks. But stablecoins essentially once a niche product, but it's become, of course, in my opinion, core infrastructure for the next era of digital money. So what should we be watching next? So first of all is the regulation. I think governments around the world are definitely drafting the stablecoin laws. We've seen that here, and particularly in the UK specifically. And I'm sure they'll soon require full audits, proper audits, maybe from a few, or certainly some capital control. Secondly to that is interest rates. So if the yields fall, of course, Tether's profits could shrink dramatically as well. So I guess it just depends on which banks or which financial institutions they're using to obtain that interest threshold. Third, of course, is transparency, which is, of course, what blockchain in general is all about, or supposed to be all about. So its attestations recently show that snapshot of reserves, but the industry still wants to see a full audit. And I guess end users as well. I do know for sure that many of us, including myself at times, always a bit cautious, even with stablecoins and things like USDT and USDC, whether that is maybe manipulated too much in our minds from media, etc. But I think in general, when it comes to money, everyone's obviously very careful about it. So the fourth point I would make in terms of watching next is the diversification. So Tether is now investing in areas like Bitcoin mining, AI, fintech infrastructure, which could definitely open up new opportunities. Equally, in my opinion, new risks as well. So of course AI, etc. is phenomenally fast at the moment in terms of its growth, but those could burst at any time, of course. Same of course with crypto. So whatever happens, one thing's for sure, stablecoins, well, I guess they're nothing or anything but boring. So next time you see that simple $1 token in your wallet, remember that behind it is a multi-billion-dollar investment engine quietly powering the crypto world. So if you found this breakdown helpful, or if you want to know more, smash the like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Any questions you have, please do drop them in the comments below. I always love answering the questions as much as possible. If I don't know the answer, it's always an opportunity to do another video. So I always welcome these bits of information. So thanks very much for watching, or even listening, I guess, to an extent. Hit that subscribe button as well. Make sure you're tuned into the channel. I'm going to be doing a lot more educational videos. When we're in the bear markets, of course, it does get a bit difficult to talk about certain crypto assets, as hopefully you can appreciate. So I'm doing a bit of a twist at the moment of going more for the educational. We'll definitely ramp up when the market is switching, but I will always dip into the crypto asset videos when possible, even in the lower regions of the markets or when it's a bit boring, because sometimes these are the best times to be looking at the assets, right? So do drop again in the comments below any assets you want covering over the coming days. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.